Hi, and welcome back to Receptivity, the new collections that I'm putting out that deal with bringing sensitivity to our practice and using concepts to create that sensitivity to the practice. So the Meet the Resistance tutorials really deal with the physical asana and give us tutorials on how to get in or out of or work within the asana. But moving through receptivity really pulls in kind of my love of using yoga as a reformation. And we continue with the controversy, conspiracy versus corruption. So if you know me, then you already know where I'm going. And you know that I was raised on Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock and Dark Shadows. And then, of course, later in life found the X-Files and fell madly in love with the X-Files. And I'm a proud X-Filer to this day. The X-Files are widely known to reveal conspiracy thought and deal with all of those things that are way out there for people. But just as importantly, they're a love story. And it's a tribe who fights for a version of truth that's buried deep beneath those who believe that that truth should remain hidden. And I was classified as a conspiratorial thinker. And I saw this as correct until recently when, as usual, my practice has put a gloss on things and revealed a different thought process or a different manner of thinking, usually flipping the switches. And how we cope with the confrontation of ugly ideals, acts, or thoughts says much more about a collective group than the act in and of itself. Corruption reflects much more about us as a collective society than does the counterpart of modern conspiracy thinkers trying to accommodate or find a reason around it. As of late, with the example of Corona and all the stories circulating, both-sided, neither takes a middle ground or recognizes the actuality. And these theories that are designed out of conspiracy all seem to birth from human behavior in its most atrocious form, corruption. And what better way to hide corruption than by discrediting the theories with the conspiracy tag? And this comes to be heavily laden with doubt and fun makers. We've spent a lot of time discrediting alternative thought process, and here we are today confronted with it. So corruption deals with emotional concepts, fear, power, manipulation, control, all resulting in various forms and levels of harm to oneself or others. Modern conspiracy is intellectual, and it asks the questions or defines reasons for the corruptive acts. Conspiracy thought process is easily slandered because to go down that road is to look at our monstrous side. That side of us that is willing to inflict pain for power. And none of us want to see that side. It's a brutal side, it's a brutal recognition. The fear, the shame, and the harm of corruptive acts seeks hiding places and gets really creative in diverting the attention to them. And therein is the exposure of corruption. So guru is one who dispels darkness towards light. Now, we wouldn't call a regular teacher like myself a guru. I am not a guru. BKS Iyengar took the title reluctantly, and it is laden with all kinds of responsibility. When you have that responsibility to help someone out of the darkness and into the light, there's a ferocity there that may not be met anywhere else. In Judaism, we have Yetzer Hara and Yetzer HaTov. Yetzer Hara is evil inclination, and Yetzer HaTov is good inclination. So much like guru, dark and light, Hara, HaTov, say again, dark and light. And it again reflects that double-edged sword of how fine the line is between good and lesser, let's say lesser. So in this continuation of receptivity, we'll use the physical practice of asana to better understand and eradicate our corruptive tendencies, not only to ourselves, but to others, knowingly or unknowing. I mean, in big scales, there is massive corruption, but within our own personal self, there is also corruption. And we will look at that through asana practice, and also the afflictions Patanjali speaks of, and the different ways of thought and the different ways our pride and ego come about to us. The first pose that we're going to be able to look at that in is Shirshasana. So with Shirshasana in mind, let's get started. So Shirshasana, if you don't know the pose, it's head balance. And we're going to take a look at that. So a few things that you might want to know about Shirshasana is that it can be a very egoic pose. You know, to master balancing on your head definitely defines this characteristic of, whoa, I'm so great, I'm so strong, I've done it, I've mastered something. But if you know the qualities of Shirshasana, it's a masculine pose and it deals with intellect. So we can rationalize ourselves out of that, because as much as it can build the ego, it can also bring the ego back to a state of humility, much like Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Hatov, and Guru. So we constantly have to battle that line within ourselves. So I'm going to take the pose and I'm going to do it in profile so that we can see exactly where my corruption takes place, and if we can't conspiracize ourselves out of it. So we begin by bringing the elbows to the floor beneath the shoulders, crossing the fingers. And if you practice this pose, remember to change the cross of the fingers every time, so that, again, you don't develop poor problems or poor habits, that you're constantly staying in the light, or even a shadow of the light. Stay there. So we're going to bring the summit of the head to the floor and the back of the head into the cup. The knees are close to us. We're going to straighten the legs. So right here, my corruption can begin. I will come down, but I will continue to force the pose. So then I have to depend on conspiracy to lift up out of it. Find the reasons why I'm being corrupt. Is it that I don't have the strength? Is it because I don't have the stability? Is it because I'm just too weak-minded to make myself do it right? We walk the feet closer, and so now we can go up with two legs, but again, is that strenuous on my neck? Would I be better off bringing the knees in so that I can keep the strength through the arms and the strength through the trunk? Bring the legs up, and again, re-examine the corruption of the pose. Am I lifting? Am I allowing the pose to be everything that I need it to be in order for me to be the best version of me I can be? And then finally, the legs up. And then once in the pose, how do I stay in the pose? Do I think just being in it is enough, or am I constantly examining the pose? The corruptive tendency is that, oh, I'm just going to continue. I'm just going to do because I can. Just because we can does not mean that we should. So we want to perfect that atmosphere of lifting up without strain, that effortless effort that Patanjali expresses to us in the Yoga Sutras. And then we will finally bend the knees, bring the knees in, bring the feet down, and come down. So I specifically chose Shirshasana for this because we're on the head, the seat of the intellect. And Shirshasana is one of I wouldn't say it's our beginning poses, but it happens within the first 2 years of our practice. So it's one of the beginning aspects of our practice. So it is one of the poses we really look into and want to do, we want to accomplish. So it can be tricky in that sense that it can throw us over the edge of egoic and prideful way of being, or we can take it as its natural instincts of the pose to calm and abate those tendencies, to intellectualize ourselves out of all those emotions of wanting to be prideful and wanting to be on top and wanting to be the one looked at in class or in life. It's not a bad thing to want people to look at you. It's a bad thing to be corrupt about it. So with that in mind, I hope we're making some headway, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I mean, this is the yoga that I love, the guts. So come on and bring it to me. If you have poses you want me to express this in, let me know. Otherwise, I have a lineup, but you can use it in any pose. In any pose you're going into it, question yourself consistently as to how and why. Have a good practice. Keep meeting the resistance.